Okay, welcome back to the channel. This will be a Blender tutorial, first one I'm doing. And we're just going to do pretty simple stuff. We're going to get to know the interface a little bit, and we're going to make the first parts probably of an old NES controller, one of the joystick controllers. So first, let's take a look at the Blender interface here for just a second. First, this is how it opens up every time. You can tell it not to open this little dialog box, but we're not going to care about that. Okay, so first when it opens, you get a light, you get a cube, and you get a camera. Okay, if you hit the camera button here in the corner of your main interface, it just takes you into the camera. You can lock the camera so that you can move the camera around there, and that's basically the most simple stuff that you can do with Blender and just looking around the interface. So let's get this ready so that we can start building our controller. And I have a couple of pieces of reference, but the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this default cube, because everyone does. And we're going to go and change the view around a little bit. Okay, so I come from 3D Studio Max. 3D Studio Max generally looks like this. That's just what I learned to 3D model on to begin with, and when I'm working with certain things, that's what I tend to use, to like things to look like. This is a matter of preference, but it does give us some general benefits. Okay, so let me see here. We got this image, which is actually quite useful. So we're going to drag this into the top, and notice that that gives us sort of a plane. Now, one of the benefits of doing it into the top view here is that it actually corresponds to a flat view. Notice that it's flat, and the second one that I dragged on is not. Control Z to get us out of that. Okay, so that's just to give us the ability to model something knowing that it's aligned to our axes, and that's actually really useful for most reasons and most modeling and so forth. So we're just going to grab the move tool, and I want to align the center of the controller with the two axes. And notice that there's an origin here for us to use. So I'm just going to do that. Now, that created an empty over here in the corner, and an empty is basically a plane that you can't edit. Notice that there's only object mode for it. There's no, like if I were to add a regular plane here, okay, I could go into edit mode and edit its vertices and so forth, but this empty doesn't give me that. It's just a reference, piece. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to align everything to this top section of the controller here. Okay, so I'm just going to scale, because scaling tends to keep my my origin in the center of the piece that I'm working on. So if the closer I can get to the thing that I'm working on without actually going into mesh edit and playing with the mesh, the less I have to do later to give my origin the right place in the piece that I'm editing. Now, up here there are a few buttons over here, and notice that this just gives us transparency, and this is toggle X-ray. Okay, it's Alt Z on your keyboard. So toggling this on and off just allows us to see through and see to our reference piece. Okay, so next thing, okay, Now, we can go into edit mode and get these vertices exactly where we need them to be, and we will eventually do that. But the next thing I actually need is I want to add a mesh cylinder. Okay, now we're going to turn off we're going to toggle that x-ray on and off. I'm going to go down here. When you first create an object, you get a set of properties down here. Now, notice if I do this, those properties change. Okay, so you only get when you first create it to change these properties. So we're going to do this, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put 8 in the vertices. Now, there are some good reasons to do this. Why? Well, first of all, it allows us to model in low poly. Okay, when I go and I take this, and we're going to actually get, we're going to take the plane, and we're going to take the empty, and we're going to take those both away. Okay, and when I add a modifier to this, okay, I'm going to go into generate, and I'm going to go into subdivision surface. I'm going to give it a couple of subdivs. Okay, and notice that we get something actually circular. Okay, and it gets even more circular if I were to tab into edit mode, and I'm just going to create a loop cut here. Okay, that's an actual circle. So when we smooth anything that's circular with eight edges, okay, that's an octagon, okay, we get a smooth circle when we subdiv. Okay, so we're going to undo these and get back to the cylinder. We're going to introduce our plane, we're going to introduce our empty. Now we're going to turn back on x-ray, and what I want to do is I just want to take the cylinder here, and I'm going to make it roughly the size and position of this circle here. Okay, so we're going to do this. We're going to zoom in a bit. This is a little harder to see here. Okay, and we want those edges to follow the edges should fall onto the circle for the most part. Okay, and we just gonna go like this and get it right where we need it. There we go. Okay, so now we have a sort of a circle reference. Okay, this is how I do it. Now there are plenty of other ways to do this type of thing, but this is how I tend to do it. I keep that circle reference around, and I model with it until I'm done, and then it gets deleted. Okay, so we're gonna tab into edit mode on the actual controller, what we're gonna be making the controller into. Okay, and we're gonna create a vertical and a horizontal, but we're going to slide that horizontal slightly up. Now I'm just using this this loop cut tool right here. Okay, all it does is connect line to the loops. Okay, so now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to align it to the center of this. Okay, so now we have this vertice, and we have I'm just going to narrow this down to this, and just narrow this down to this. I don't want them to actually be those. I don't want this vertice to actually be, or this vertice to actually be the edges of the circle. I just want them to be close, to keep this to be a single piece. Okay, so now I'm going to take my knife, and we're going to zoom in. Okay, and we're going to click here, 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 and there. Okay, and then when we hit enter, we get a set of loop cuts. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're in vertice mode. Okay, and I'm just going to take this, and I'm going to hold shift and hit that vertice, and I'm going to hit, not M, I'm going to hit J. Okay, that all that does is draw a line from one vertice to another. Notice that it will draw a line through vertices. So if I connect this and this one and hit J, it will draw a line across through lines, through whatever. We're not worried about that. Okay, all we're doing is we're going to take these and just connect them with J. You just have to be a little careful about your selections. There we go. Okay, now we have this. And as I say, if we now go to this is your face select, we can now select these faces, and we can hit delete, and we're going to only delete the faces. If we do faces and edges, it'll get rid of these edges and we'll lose topology. We don't want to do that. Okay, so now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to edge. I'm going to select this edge, and then if I do select loops, edge loops, it gives me this whole loop. Okay, so now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to strike E. Notice what happened though. Okay, I had it over here, and if I hit E again, it does something different. E. Okay, so now that's over there on this, so that's E. Okay, but okay, so point being is that if I now have the mouse cursor over the viewport and I hit E, I get the ability to extrude the vertices that I'm working with. Okay, so now left clicking returns them to where they were. Enter makes it, or if you haven't moved it, so we're going to do Control Z so that we can talk about that again. So if I haven't moved it, Enter makes it permanent. Okay, so now I'm just going to shrink this down so that it's on the secondary portion of the controller. There, that opening, and we're going to lift it off of the plane a little bit. Okay, just lift it because this has some depth. Okay, and I'm going to hit E again. Okay, and I'm going to go downwards with it, and there we go. So now if we take a look, we're going to get rid of our cylinder for a second. We have created that hole, that section there. Okay, so that's important. That's a excellent way to create good topology for what is essentially a manual boolean. Okay, a boolean is combining two shapes. So now, what happens when I do like I did before? I go to generate and I do subdiv surface. Well, we add these. Okay, we're up to 3 levels in the viewport. Okay, now nothing sharp. Notice how in the original, in the actual controller here, these are sharp kind of edges and so forth. So let's try and bring that back. Okay, so we're gonna go into edit mode. Okay, which we are in. I'm gonna select this, and I'm just gonna bring this up here, like I did with the cylinder in the beginning. Okay, so now if we look at it in object mode, those are nice sharp turns. See how sharp that is? And I can make it even sharper in edit mode if I go and I say we're going to do it right here. Okay, that's a nice sharp turn. Okay, and notice when we go to this that it falls pretty close to being in line with where the controller is. Also notice that I've kept quads, and I can do this to make the circle around here nice and sharp. So we can now turn off, go in object regular mode. Okay, there we go. See, nice and sharp on the ground. Okay, and we're going to right click and hit shade smooth. Okay, just to get rid of those weird shading artifacts that were here. Now, notice at the edges though, we have it's kind of like bowing in. It's sharper over here than it is over here. That's because of how many edge loops we have over here versus how many edge loops we have over here. But we don't want to, we're not going to get ahead of ourselves here. Okay, if we look at the controller, this section here has a whole bunch of buttons on it. So we need to add those buttons. Now, how can we do that? Well, there's actually a really simple way of doing that. Okay, we're just going to go and we're going to select these outer Control Z, select these outer faces here. Okay, and we're going to duplicate, Shift D. Okay, and we're going to scale it until it matches the size of the buttons that are on this controller. Okay, and they're getting there. Okay, it's getting there. It's not directly centered, so we're going to do that. Okay, and there you go. So now we have one button, and in reality, that would be that's not where we want it exactly. I mean, we need the other one, don't we? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go here. I'm going to select these. I'm going to make this more of a square, first of all, because the button's more of a square. Okay, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to first get rid of this back, this particular segment here. But I'm not going to get rid of all of it, right? Because we need some of it to keep us here. So we're now going to go to faces, and we're going to get rid of this face. Okay, just delete the face. Okay, that's actually pretty useful. But why? Okay, well, I want to be able to put this button wherever I want, and that face was kind of in the way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to here. I'm going to next place, this actually. Here we're going to do this here. We're going to do this here. We're going to create one in the middle one in the middle. Okay, and we're then going to start fiddling and figuring out how best to create, to merge this mesh with this mesh. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to go into vertice mode. We're going to grab this, we're going to grab this, and we're going to hit M, and we're going to hit at last. Here and here, M at last. Ah, crap. Too many vertices. Okay. M at last. Doing the same thing. There we go. Oh, that's right. Shift, not control. That's a very easy thing to get into, is you want shift, not control. Okay, so now we have that button, but we still got this like circular issue here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a polygon through here to give me the geometry that I need to do this, because I don't want to sharpen this too much, because look what happens when I try to just do the same thing that I did before, create a loop cut there. Well, looks fine right up until you look at the object mode and you realize you created a flat here. It's subtle, but there is a flat here. Okay, so we want to not do that. We want to go through here. Okay, we want to be able to we want to just have the geometry through here and just create a quad through this portion, and we can do that relatively simply. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take this knife tool and we're going to put it right here, and right here. Okay, so now this is technically a quad. These aren't quads any longer, but this is technically a quad if we do this. And what we're going to do is we're just going to select this edge and we're going to dissolve the edge. That gets rid of it without getting rid of the face that's underneath it. Now we have the geometry that's required to take these two and merge them. So what we're going to do is we're just going to shift, select, merge at last. Okay, now we no longer have a hole, but we do have an issue with the number of vertices through this section. So we're going to create a loop cut, and we're going to then connect this and this with J. Okay, so now we no longer have to worry about the issue that we created for ourselves. Okay, so next we're going to go back to edit mode and we're going to select these vertices. Okay, and we're going to twist them till they match the spot for the controller. So we're going to now we're going back to X-ray. We're going to select these vertices. Now we've got quads, so we're good. We're just going to twist this until it matches the controller. Okay, because we're about to do another operation, a new operation. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take this, this, and this, and we're going to just move it until it aligns with that. Okay, and we're going to try and make sure that our lines are straight. There's a way to make sure that this is straight later, but we're going to we're working quickly here. Okay, so there we go. Now on the controller, the thing that you don't realize is that this section here is actually elevated. So we're going to take our faces, we're going to hit E for extrude, okay, and we're going to lift it up a bit. Okay, there we go. That's actually looking pretty good. And now we have this button built, and guess what? There's a button over here that's exactly the same. So we can build it again, but simpler and easier. Okay, so we're going to now select these edges here. Okay, and these, well, these are faces, sorry. We're going to select these faces here, and we're going to Shift D. Okay, and that allows me to now have a copy that I can go over here, that I can move over here. Okay, so now we have a copy. What can we do with that? Well, we can now figure out how to make this fit into the controller that we've already made. This is not quite aligned. This is, sorry, it's bugging my OCD. Anyways, so there we go. So how do we do that? Well, first we've got a face here that doesn't belong. This face does not belong. Okay. Next, notice that there's this could connect very simply to through there if we had another line. So we're just going to create another line there, and we're going to go around. We're going to orbit a little bit, and we are going to take this. Okay, notice that we have. Oops, I hate that that tool just sticks on. Anyways, so now we do Control Shift. There we go. Okay, merge at last. So now that's part of the controller. Okay, so next we start figuring out how we want to build the rest of that face around it. So what's the easiest way? Well, for one, let's build this face in here. And how do we do that? Well, we can do Shift, 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 and then hit Fill. Okay, and we're just going to Shift select the vertices, and we're going to hit Fill. Now, that gets us most of what we need, right? Because we're most of the way there to building that. But we have, oh, well, that's not a quad. That's more than a quad, right? That's got 5 edges. This is not going to do. So we need to create another loop cut. Let's create this loop cut here. Okay, but here's the thing. That gives us that gives us what will become 3 edges here, and then 4 edges here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Well, actually, it's another 5, but we're not getting it. Anyways, point being is that first we're going to go here, and we're going to go here, and we're going to merge at last. Okay, so now we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a quad. So we're going to create we're going to fill that again. Okay, now this isn't good topology, okay, because of the way that this line goes. Okay, this line here, this edge, this edge here is causing us problems. This is not good topology. But because we're not animating it, we don't care. Okay, the buttons might get animated, but this isn't going to bend or move or anything like that. So we're not going to worry too much about the fact that this is really odd topology. Okay, we can fix it. There is a way to fix it, and sometimes I go through that to just fix certain things. Okay, so we can go and create an edge loop from here to here. Okay, and then we just go and dissolve this edge. Okay, and now we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 edges. Okay, that create 2 polys here. It's better topology, but it's not brilliant topology. Okay, so now we have to go for the rest of it. Well, here's something interesting. We can create a edge from here to here, and by doing so we would create what we need to try and bridge this gap. Okay, well, that's not bad. Let's do that. So what's the best way to do that? It's relatively it's fundamentally not it's not a simple procedure, is it? But let's try something here. I'm going to create an edge loop cut here, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to just grab this edge and grab this edge, and I'm going to extrude that. Okay, and I'm going to work on this in this area, because if I work in here, I cannot cause it to accidentally do this, to go up or down. Okay, so now I'm going to go this way with this. Okay, I'm going to go here, and we're going to do this, and we're going to go and take that there, and we're going to merge at last, and we're going to merge at center. Okay, now we have a quad here which we can create. Okay, we're just going to fill that, and then if we add another edge loop here, well, guess what? We can now do merge at last. That panel that I brought up was because I hit N instead of M, or well, in addition to M. Okay, anyways, so now we can do the same thing up here essentially. We're just going to do another edge loop here. We're going to now, we're here, and we're just going to do this, 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 and hit fill. We're going to grab this one, this one, this one, and this one, and hit fill. That's F on your keyboard again, that shortcut. Okay, so now we have what are essentially nice buttons. Now notice that they're a little smooth, and that's causing issues, but we can actually deal with that. Okay, so we're going to go into edit mode again, and we're going to create an edge loop, and we're going to go and we're going to create that, and we're going to go to create that. Okay, we're going to there. Come on, give me the, there it is. Okay, so now the buttons are getting sharper. Okay, come on. Oh, that didn't extrude that, did it? There it is. Okay. Now, you can get this done with a with some CAD software, probably more accurately. But if you don't own CAD software, you can't use it. So that's our tool tip for the day. Anyways, so notice I can make these buttons a little sharper by going into this like this and going into this like this. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of the effect that has on the rest of the controller relatively quickly. So we're going to do this and merge at center. We're going to do this, merge at center. Okay, and then I'm going to go here and we're going to dissolve that vertex, dissolve that edge. Okay, so there we go. That made everything a little sharper, right? And we can do the same thing over here eventually when we get around to making more edges. We can just keep narrowing everything down. Okay, so now here's the other issue. The edges of this are not sharp. Okay, if we look at the controller, they're pretty sharp, right? So how are we going to do that? Well, I'm going to show you on one, and then I think this tutorial is getting a little long, so that's where we're going to break here. These techniques will do the rest of this controller for you, so don't worry about that. So let's make this edge sharp, this particular angle sharp, and then we'll be done for the day. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab this. Okay, now we don't want, again, we're not going to try and add loop cuts to this. We want to just go, okay, to here. Okay, and hit enter because you can't apparently. Okay, and then we're going to go to that and hit enter, and we're going to do the same thing here. Okay, hit enter. Now if we go and we get rid of that object mode, notice that that's pretty dang sharp, right? Now we need to go and make sure that that didn't cause topology issues. So let's go in edit mode. Okay, and why did that do that? That's strange, right? So not the best thing to have had happen. So we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and we're going to hit J. There we go. And we're going to go over here to this side where we're having trouble seeing this, and we're going to hit J. See how I said, how the thing I said before was really useful is actually now becoming really, really useful? So no? Well, there you go. Anyways, so let's turn back on this and go back to edit mode. Notice that this has now become sharp like the edge of the button. Okay? So there you go. There are some editing techniques to adding circles without using booleans to your to your controller or whatever it is that you're trying to model, you will be able to add in these lines. However, they can also be added via bump maps or whatever. So that's there. You can then, once you've got this sorted out, go and duplicate it over here for the turbo buttons. You can also duplicate it up here for these and just elongate them. However, this will need a segment in between. So notice how when I go to edit mode, there's this sharp point here. This will need to be split into two vertices with a line with an edge between them to get that elongated button look. Anyways, I hope this was helpful. Hope you enjoyed, and you have a great day.